Chief Adeyemi stared at the young woman lying on the hospital bed. Something about her felt familiar, very familiar. Then suddenly, it hit him. His eyes widened. No! Impossible! Slowly, he stepped closer. The eyes, the face, then the word escaped his lips. Sandra. There was silence. For the first time in years, fear appeared on Chief's face. Real fear. Just then, the doctor walked in. He glanced at Sandra's file, then frowned. I think she lost her memory. Silence. Chief stared at Sandra. Then, slowly, his fear disappeared. And a smile replaced it. Not relief. Something darker. Something dangerous. Because suddenly, the only person who could recognize him no longer remembered who he was. And Chief intended to keep it that way.
3 years ago, in a busy part of Lagos, Desmond and his wife Sandra were simply trying to survive. Life had not been easy for them. In fact, life had been hard for a very long time. But somehow, they still laughed, they still prayed, and they still believed tomorrow could be better. Desmond was not a lazy man. Every morning, he woke up before sunrise and left home searching for work. Any work. Construction sites, delivery jobs, loading vehicles, anything honest. Anything that could put food on the table. Sandra always joked that if hard work alone made people rich, Desmond would already own half of Lagos. And every time she said it, Desmond would laugh, because even when money was missing, Sandra somehow found a way to keep joy alive. The apartment was small, very small. The roof leaked whenever rain fell. The fan worked only when it felt generous. And sometimes they had to choose between buying food or paying bills. But somehow, it still felt like home, because they had each other. At night, they would sit outside their apartment and talk about the future. Children, a better house, a business of their own. Simple dreams, normal dreams, dreams that didn't seem impossible. Not yet. But life has a strange way of changing without warning. Slowly, money started becoming harder to find. Jobs became fewer. Bills became larger. Rent piled up. Promises were made. Deadlines passed. Until one afternoon, their entire world was thrown outside. Literally. That afternoon, the rain would not stop. Desmond stood outside the apartment building holding an old travel bag. Sandra stood beside him, clutching a plastic container filled with clothes. Then, thud, another bag landed on the wet ground. Their landlord had thrown out everything. Mattress, clothes, buckets, even their wedding photo. Sandra quickly bent down and picked it up. The glass had cracked across the middle. For a moment, she just stared at it. Desmond looked away, because sometimes pain becomes too heavy to look at directly.
The landlord stood at the entrance, shaking his head. He was tired of waiting, tired of promises, tired of hearing next week. Desmond, he said coldly, I've waited 4 months already. Silence. I have children too. Then, bang. The door closed. Just like that. People passed, some looked, some whispered. Nobody helped. Sandra forced a smile and looked at her husband. We'll figure this out. Desmond looked at her. She was smiling, but her eyes had already betrayed her. And for the first time that day, he felt afraid. Not for himself, for her. Because hope was becoming harder to protect. Later that evening, they went to see Desmond's old friend, Chiki. Years ago, they had struggled together, shared meals together, even slept in the same room when life was hard. Desmond smiled weakly after the gate opened. Brother. Chike smiled too, but the smile didn't stay long. Desmond explained everything quietly, not asking for money, not asking for favors, just somewhere to stay for a few days. For a moment, Chike said nothing. Then he sighed. Guy, he looked around before stepping outside. I have given you the update before. Desmond frowned slightly. Chike lowered his voice. The delivery job. There was silence. Desmond stared at him. Chike continued. But you said no. He placed a hand on Desmond's shoulder. Look at you now. Desmond's face changed immediately. No, not this. Not again. Think about it. Silence. No stress. Silence. One trip and your problems are gone. Desmond slowly removed Chike's hand from his shoulder. No. Chike blinked. No? Desmond shook his head. Calmly, firmly. No, it's a sin against God. For a few seconds, Chike simply stared at him. Then he laughed. Not because it was funny, because he couldn't understand him. Lagos is not for people like you. Desmond said nothing. Then Chike looked directly into his eyes and smiled. If your God can help you, he stepped backward. Go and meet him. Bang. The gate closed. Desmond stood there, quietly. Sandra looked at him. No words came out, because some disappointments don't need explanations. Minutes later, they found themselves outside Sandra's friend's house. Hope returned to Sandra's face immediately. Jenny will understand. She smiled. I know she will. When Jenny opened the door, she immediately hugged Sandra. Sandra! For a moment, Sandra felt relief. Real relief. Maybe this was it. Maybe things were finally changing. Minutes later, they sat inside. Sandra explained everything. The eviction, the rejection, everything. Jenny became quiet. Very quiet. Then slowly, she looked at Sandra. What if I told you there was another way? Sandra frowned. What do you mean? Jenny hesitated, then spoke carefully. There's this chief. Silence. A very rich man. Sandra frowned harder. He has asked about you before. Sandra's expression changed immediately. Jenny continued. If you leave this suffering and agree to Chief's proposal, she glanced toward Desmond, your life will change immediately. Sandra looked at her, then slowly stood up. No. Jenny looked shocked. No? Sandra shook her head. No. I'm happily married to Desmond and I'm not leaving him for anything in the world. She looked toward Desmond. Not even money. Silence. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Jenny sighed. If you won't help yourself. She looked away. Don't expect anyone else to. And just like that, another door closed. By nightfall, they had nowhere left to go. No friends, no options, no plan. Only each other. And one bridge waiting in the darkness. The place smelled of dust and rainwater. Cars thundered overhead. People passed nearby but barely looked. To most people, they were invisible. Desmond sat quietly against one of the concrete pillars. Sandra sat beside him. For a long time, neither spoke. There was nothing left to say. They had spent the entire day watching doors close, until finally, even silence became distant. Sandra slowly rested her head against his shoulder. Desmond stared ahead. His eyes looked empty now. Not because he had given up,
because he was tired, very tired. Then suddenly, Sandra smiled. Desmond frowned. "What is it?" She pointed upward. Desmond looked confused. "What am I looking at?" Sandra laughed softly. "The stars." Desmond stared at her. "The stars?" Sandra nodded. "We still have those." For a moment, Desmond just looked at her. Then he laughed quietly. Because somehow, even sitting beneath a bridge after losing everything, Sandra still found something to be grateful for. Silence returned. Then Desmond slowly reached for her hand. "Let's pray." Sandra immediately nodded. Both lowered their heads. No long prayer, no big words, no dramatic speech. Just two tired people speaking honestly. "God." Desmond's voice cracked. Silence. "We've tried." Silence. "We've done things the right way." Silence. "Please." His eyes closed tightly. "Don't leave us." That was all. Just that. Then, bang! A gunshot exploded somewhere nearby. Sandra jumped violently. People screamed. Another gunshot, then another. Cars screeched. Footsteps thundered. Suddenly, people were running everywhere. Panic swallowed the streets. "Run!" Desmond grabbed Sandra's hand. Immediately, chaos erupted around them. People pushed past. Someone crashed into Desmond. Another body slammed into Sandra. Their hands tightened. Then, another impact. Hard. Their fingers slipped. Desmond looked up instantly. "Sandra!" But people had already separated them. Bodies everywhere. Fear everywhere. "Sandra!" He saw her for 1 second. 1 second only. Then she disappeared into the crowd. Desmond pushed forward desperately. "Sandra!" Then suddenly, strong hands grabbed him from behind. Police. Before he could speak, they forced him against the vehicle. "Wait!" Desmond struggled. "No, you've made a mistake." Nobody listened. Not one person. Because nearby, real criminals were running. And in the middle of confusion, Desmond had become one of them. Meanwhile, Sandra kept running. She couldn't see him anymore, couldn't hear him anymore. Fear had taken over completely. Then suddenly, bright headlights appeared ahead. Her eyes widened. Screech! Everything went black. For a moment, there was nothing. Then slowly, voices began to appear through the darkness. People shouting, footsteps running, confusion everywhere. Someone had found her. Someone was trying to save her. Then, everything disappeared again.
Chief Adeyemi stared at the young woman lying on the hospital bed. Something about her felt familiar. Very familiar. Then suddenly, it hit him. His eyes widened. "No! Impossible!" Slowly, he stepped closer. The eyes, the face, then the word escaped his lips. "Sandra." There was silence. For the first time in years, fear appeared on Chief's face. Real fear. Just then, the doctor walked in. He glanced at Sandra's file, then frowned. "I think she lost her memory." Silence. Chief stared at Sandra. Then, slowly, his fear disappeared. And a smile replaced it. Not relief. Something darker. Something dangerous. Because suddenly, the only person who could recognize him no longer remembered who he was. And Chief intended to keep it that way.
Sandra didn't know how long she had been unconscious. Seconds, minutes, hours. She couldn't tell. The first thing she heard was a strange beeping sound. Beep, beep, beep. Then voices, distant voices. Slowly, She opened her eyes. White ceiling, bright lights, cold air. Confusion immediately flooded her face. She tried to sit up. Pain shot through her head. Ah! Instantly, someone moved beside her. Easy. A calm voice. Sandra looked slowly toward him. An older man sat beside the bed, neatly dressed, quiet face, kind eyes. For several seconds, she stared at him. Then, a strange feeling crashed through her. Cold, uncomfortable, like seeing something she should recognize, but couldn't. Gone immediately. The doctor moved closer. "How are you feeling?" Sandra looked around slowly. Hospital, machines, strangers. Nothing made sense. Then the question came. "Do you know your name?" Sandra opened her mouth immediately, then froze. Silence. Fear slowly entered her eyes. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Her breathing changed. "My name." Nothing. Panic flooded her face instantly. "Who am I?" Silence. Real silence. The doctor exchanged glances with the nurse. Then, finally, "You've suffered trauma." Sandra stared. "We think you've lost your memory." No, no, no. Sandra shook her head immediately. "No, I remember." She stopped. Because she didn't. Not her parents, not where she lived, not Desmond, nothing. The older man slowly leaned forward. His voice remained calm. "You were in an accident." Sandra looked at him. "You brought me here?" He nodded slowly. Silence. "My name is Chief Adeyemi." He smiled gently. "Don't worry. You are safe now." Sandra nodded slowly. But for some reason, that strange feeling returned again. Outside the room, Chief quietly closed the door. The smile disappeared immediately. Slowly, he turned toward his assistant. Silence. For a few seconds, he said nothing. Then, "Find out everything about the girl." His assistant frowned. "Everything, sir?" Chief looked back through the small glass window. Sandra was still lying on the hospital bed, lost, confused, completely unaware. His face became cold, very cold. "And make sure nobody finds her first." Desmond's head moved slowly from side to side. His fingers tightened around the thin prison mattress. Sweat covered his face. His eyes moved rapidly beneath closed eyelids. Faster, faster. His breathing changed. Suddenly, his body jerked violently. "Sandra!" Desmond sat up, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his face. For several seconds, he just stared into the darkness of the prison cell. His heart pounded heavily inside his chest. Boom, boom, boom. His cellmate woke up immediately. "What happened?" Desmond looked terrified. Not confused, terrified. Slowly, he climbed down from the bed, then grabbed the prison bars. "Oh my God! Oh my God!" His voice shook. "I need to help her." Desmond looked around. All he could see was cold walls, iron bars, locked doors, prison. Then reality hit him. Because the woman he loved could be in danger, and there was absolutely nothing he could do to save her. The massive gate slowly opened. Sandra stared through the car window. The mansion was enormous. Too enormous. Beautiful flowers, tall pillars, expensive cars. Everything looked perfect. But suddenly, a strange feeling passed through her. Her eyes slowly moved across the building, then stopped. Her expression changed very slightly, because for 1 second, it felt familiar. Not the mansion, not exactly. A feeling, like she had been there before. Like somewhere inside her mind, something was trying to wake up. Then it disappeared. Chief noticed immediately. "You okay?" Sandra blinked, then forced a smile. Yes, but she wasn't sure. Minutes later, Sandra sat quietly inside the living room. The place looked like something from television. Everything felt too expensive to touch. Chief sat across from her. Silence. Then he smiled. "You cannot keep calling yourself the woman with no memory." Sandra looked up. Chief leaned back slowly. "Until your memory returns, or until we find your family." His eyes stayed on her. "I think you need a name." Sandra frowned slightly. "A name?" Chief nodded. "I'll call you Dara." "Dara?" Chief smiled. "It means beautiful." Sandra stared at him. No memory, no family, no past, no identity, nothing. Slowly, she smiled. Dara. For the first time since waking up, something finally felt like it belonged to her. Chief smiled back, but inside, his thoughts were very different. Because while Sandra thought she had just found a home, Chief Adeyemi already knew something she didn't. Sandra was never leaving that mansion alive. Later that night, Sandra couldn't sleep. The bed was soft. The room was beautiful. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. She turned to one side, then the other. Sleep refused to come. So slowly, she sat up. Her eyes moved around the room, then stopped. Because something felt wrong. Very wrong. Sandra frowned. For several seconds, she just sat there listening. Nothing. Absolute silence. Then, tap. Sandra froze. Tap. 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 Slowly, she looked toward the window. Nothing. Tap. Sandra swallowed. Because the sound wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the room. Silence. Then suddenly, the curtains moved. Slowly. Back and forth. Back and forth. Sandra's eyes widened. Every window was closed. She knew that. She had checked them herself. Silence. Then, a strange image flashed through her mind. A terrified 15-year-old girl hiding under a table, hands covering her mouth, heavy footsteps moving closer, someone shouting. Then, bang! Sandra jumped violently. Her breathing changed immediately. The image disappeared. Gone. Just like that. Sandra slowly opened the door and stared down the empty hallway. The strange feeling still hadn't disappeared. Slowly, she stepped outside her room. The mansion was quiet. Too quiet. Only the sound of her footsteps echoed softly. Step, step, step. Then suddenly, she stopped. Because at the end of the hallway, there was a door. Different from the others. For some reason, Sandra couldn't look away. Something about it felt wrong. Not dangerous. Familiar. Very familiar. Slowly, she began walking toward it. Step, step, step. Her heartbeat changed. Boom, boom, boom. Then suddenly, images flashed through her mind. A terrified 15-year-old girl, crying, running, a hand reaching toward her. Then it disappeared. Sandra froze. Her breathing became heavier. Slowly, her hand reached toward the doorknob. Then, "Don't!" Sandra screamed and turned. Chief Adeyemi stood behind her, breathing heavily. For several seconds, nobody spoke, because for the first time, Chief looked afraid, real fear. Then, suddenly, his face changed. The smile returned, fast, too fast. "Sorry," he laughed softly. "That room is dangerous." Silence. Sandra looked at him. Dangerous? Before she could speak, his assistant suddenly rushed towards them. "Chief!" The man's face had gone pale. Chief frowned. "What is it?" The assistant swallowed, then whispered something into his ear. Immediately, Chief's expression changed. No smile, no calmness, nothing. Then, without saying a word, he walked away, fast. Sandra stared, because whatever the assistant had said had frightened him, and for the second time that night, Chief Adeyemi looked terrified.
Later that night, Chief sat alone inside his office. The report lay open in front of him. His eyes moved slowly across the page. Age, parents' names, old addresses. Then, he stopped. His fingers tightened immediately. No. Impossible. Slowly, he looked up. Because after 17 years, one name was staring directly at him. The same name he had spent years trying to bury. Sandra's father. Chief stared at it. Then suddenly, another memory hit him. A terrified 15-year-old girl, eyes staring directly at him. Chief immediately stood up. No, no, no. Because memory loss was one thing, but if Sandra remembered even one piece, everything would collapse. Then suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Chief looked toward the door. His assistant stepped inside. "Sir?" Chief stared. The assistant swallowed, then spoke carefully. "We found something else." "What?" The assistant hesitated. Very slowly, he placed another file on the table. Chief looked down. Then, the color disappeared from his face, because written across the top was "Marriage Record, Husband, Desmond Okeke." Days passed. Desmond sat quietly staring at the floor. For the first time, even hope was beginning to disappear. Then, suddenly, voices erupted nearby. Several prisoners had gathered around an old television. "Chief Adeyemi again. Lucky girl." Desmond frowned slightly. "Lucky girl?" Slowly, he looked up, then froze. His eyes widened. "No. Impossible. Sandra." Sandra was standing beside Chief Adeyemi, smiling, wearing expensive clothes. The television reporter smiled. The billionaire philanthropist Chief Adeyemi and the young woman he rescued after a tragic accident. Desmond shut up instantly. "No, no, no." His breathing changed immediately, because suddenly, everything Sandra had once told him came rushing back. Her father's friend, the name, Chief Adeyemi, the man connected to the night her parents died. Desmond grabbed the prison bars. "Sandra!" Silence. Tears immediately filled his eyes. "Oh God!" His voice broke. "Please!" Silence. "Please, protect her." Tears rolled down his face. "Please save my wife." Because suddenly, he understood what the dream meant. Sandra wasn't safe. She was living with danger itself. Later that night, the mansion was silent. Too silent. Sandra sat on the edge of her bed, wide awake. Desmond's face. No, not his face. Something. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Ever since seeing Chief Adeyemi, ever since seeing that door, something inside her refused to stay quiet. Then suddenly, another image flashed. Rain. Screaming. A teenage girl running. Then, a door. The same door. Sandra's eyes widened. Silence. Slowly, very slowly, she stood up. No hesitation this time. No fear. She walked out of the room. Step. 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 Straight down the hallway. Straight toward the forbidden door. Silence. Her hand slowly touched the doorknob. Then she stopped, because this time the door wasn't locked. Very slowly, she pushed it open. Sandra stepped inside, then froze, because hanging directly in front of her was an old family photograph, and standing beside her father, smiling at the camera, was Chief Adeyemi. Sandra froze. No. Impossible. Her breathing immediately changed. Her hands started shaking. No. Slowly, she stepped closer. Then she saw more photographs, more faces, her parents, Chief, business meetings, family gatherings, laughter. Then suddenly, everything hit at once. Rain, gunshots, screaming, a terrified 15-year-old Sandra hiding beneath a table, heavy footsteps, her mother crying, her father shouting, "Take Sandra and run." Then, bang, more screaming, footsteps coming closer. Then, a face. Chief, standing there, watching, smiling. Sandra staggered backward immediately. Her entire body started trembling. No, tears flooded her eyes. No, because now she remembered everything. Everything. Sandra's breathing became heavier. Then suddenly, clap, clap, clap. Sandra froze. Slowly, very slowly, she turned around. Chief Adeyemi stood at the door, smiling. But this time, there was no kindness, no warmth, nothing. Just darkness. Silence. Then softly, too softly, he spoke. "So," his eyes locked onto hers, "you remember now." Sandra froze. Her breathing stopped completely. Chief slowly closed the door behind him. Click. Silence. No smile. No pretending. No kindness. Nothing. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Sandra stared at him, then slowly stepped backward. "No!" Chief sighed quietly, almost sadly. "You should have left it alone." Sandra shook her head. Tears rolled down immediately. "You killed them." Silence. "You killed my parents." Chief said nothing, because there was nothing left to deny. Sandra kept backing away. "No, no." Chief kept walking forward, very slowly. "I should have finished this 17 years ago." Silence. Sandra froze. Then suddenly, she ran. Immediately, Chief's face changed. "Sandra!" She crashed through the door. Footsteps exploded behind her, fast, very fast. Then suddenly, Chief grabbed her arm, hard. Sandra screamed, "Let me go!" Then, bang! Everybody froze. Standing at the entrance, breathing heavily, eyes filled with tears, was Desmond. And behind him, police officers flooded into the mansion. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Sandra whispered, "Desmond." His voice cracked. "I told you. I would find you." Nobody moved. Sandra stared at him.
Desmond, alive and real. Tears immediately flooded her eyes. Chief looked from Sandra to Desmond, then laughed, a cold laugh. You? Silence. Desmond slowly walked forward. His eyes never left Sandra, because he had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but not like this. Never like this. Chief shook his head. Interesting. He smiled. A prisoner escaped just to die. Sandra frowned immediately. Escaped? Desmond looked at her, then slowly shook his head. No, I didn't escape. Chief's smile disappeared slightly. Then footsteps exploded through the mansion. Heavy footsteps, voices. Police! Nobody move! Chief's face changed immediately. No, impossible. Desmond stared directly at him. The people responsible for the shooting confessed. Silence. I was released 3 days ago. Sandra stared. Chief looked around desperately. Then suddenly, he ran immediately. But he had barely reached the stairs before officers flooded the hallway. Everything happened at once. Shouting, footsteps, struggling. Then, bang! Chief hit the floor. Handcuffs clicked. Sandra walked slowly toward Chief. Tears rolled down her face. Chief looked up. Then Sandra spoke quietly. You didn't just take my parents. You stole my life. Then she turned away, straight towards Desmond. For several seconds, they simply stared at each other. No words, because some moments become too heavy for words. Then Sandra ran, straight into his arms. And Desmond held her tightly, like he was afraid she would disappear again. His voice cracked. I looked for you. Silence. Sandra buried her face against him. I know. Months later, the massive gate slowly opened. Sandra stood silently. Desmond stood beside her. For several seconds, she simply stared at the mansion. Her parents' mansion. Her home. The home stolen 17 years ago. Tears slowly filled her eyes. Because after investigations, after court cases, after hidden documents surfaced, everything had finally come out. Chief Adeyemi had stolen more than lives. He had stolen an entire future. And now, everything had been returned. The mansion, the company, everything. For the first time, her father's name had returned where it belonged. Then Desmond smiled. What are you thinking? Sandra looked around slowly, then laughed softly. I almost spent my life searching for home. Then she looked at him. But home was never a place. Tears filled Desmond's eyes immediately. Sandra smiled. It was you. Meanwhile, Chike sat quietly inside a prison cell, head lowered, handcuffs on his wrists, because investigations had connected him to illegal activities from years ago. Late that evening, Sandra and Desmond sat outside the mansion, looking toward the stars. Sandra smiled. Desmond frowned. What? Sandra laughed softly. We still have those.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.